Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to talk to you today about Bonefish Tarpon's Trust Bahamas Initiative. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's good. All right, so the bonefish, can you hear me all right up there? All right, so there are 3 different species in the Bahamas. There's Albula vulpes, which Liz talked about earlier. They're the most commonly found species of the 3 on the flats. And you have Albula goriensis and Albula concorhynchus. The flats environment is probably one of the most prolific environments found throughout the Bahamas. It's a near-shore shallow water environment that ranges in 0 to 10 feet in depth and is characteristic of a very shallow gradient. And it includes a variety of habitats, including seagrass flats, sand flats, channels, blue holes, and mangrove creeks. So bonefish in the Bahamas, so I know it's been touched on by Zach and Liz already, but bonefish have been harvested by Bahamians for many generations. I heard stories, especially out of South Andros, where they would say back in the day before they got massive food imports, they'd have a large bonefish for a Christmas dinner instead of a large turkey or a ham. And it's also a culturally important species. We find it on their 10-cent coin, and it's a significant source of income for many Bahamians, as Liz and Zach touched on already. And it's mostly a catch-and-release fishery where fly fishermen come down, and as has been said already, they contribute a significant amount of money to Bahamian economy annually. That $141 million, that was done back in 2008, 2009 during the height of recession. So that number's probably increased to closer to probably $200 million now. So anthropogenic threats, we've identified that habitat loss and degradation is the largest threat to bonefish populations around the Bahamas. And then illegal netting is also a major issue as well in more localized areas. So there's several laws protecting bonefish in the Bahamas. Bahamians are allowed to catch bonefish via hook and line for their own personal consumption. The buying and selling of bonefish is illegal, and using nets to catch them is also illegal. And then if you're caught, you can be fined up to $3,000 or spend a year in jail. So the Bahamas Initiative, we mostly focus on habitat protection, and then we have many scientific collaborators, anglers, and lodges. And the main purpose is to identify bonefish home ranges, spawning locations, juvenile habitat, and overall population connectivity throughout the islands, and then with the wider Caribbean and Florida. So this Tag-Recapture Study, it was started back by the Bonefish Tarpon Trust in 2009, along with our other collaborators, Cape Luther Institute and Fisheries Conservation Foundation. And so the purpose was to find out movement patterns and hopefully identify spawning sites. We caught fish via fly fishing and also soft mesh seine nets as well. And we'd use these basically giant hypodermic needles that the tags would fit into, and then we insert it into the pterygophore bone structures on the dorsal side of the fish. After we tag the fish, we take a fork length measurement, and then we'd also sex them as well. And then finally, we'd hold them in these large containers, allows the fish to calm down after they've been worked up on, and release them in larger numbers. It helps them get a lot calmer, and it protects them from predation. So Tag-Recapture Program, we have over 11,000 fish tagged around the Bahamas so far. We've tagged fish in Grand Bahama, Abaco, Eleuthera, Exuma, South Andros, and Mangrove Key, Andros. And we've had close to 600 recaptures so far in that time. And what that's shown us is that 71.5% of the fish are recaptured within a kilometer of where they were originally tagged. And actually, of that 71.5%, 69% of those fish were caught the exact same location where they were tagged. And I can personally attest to fish that I've tagged and recaptured. I caught them in the exact same spot where I tagged them before, and they were doing the exact same thing. So this suggests that they have really small home ranges. So they like to sit back at home, have a conch snack with a blue mystic. But we also found that they like to travel long distances. So one fish in particular was tagged in southern Abaco as part of a spawning aggregation and was recaptured a year and a half later on the north side of Grand Bahama. That's 146 miles one way. And then we've had also multiple examples of fish that were tagged here on the west side of Abaco in the Marls, major bonefish habitat and now a protected area, that traveled to southern Abaco, and that's 140 miles round trip. And we've seen multiple fish do that. And so the spawning site identification, we start off with the Tag-Recapture Program, and then once we kind of figure out where the spawning site might be, we incorporate observations of these sites and also include acoustic telemetry. And I'm going to see if this video is going to work of the spawning aggregation. Please work. Yes, it is working. Okay. So this is back in 2013. This is in southern Abaco and Cross Harbor. That's a school of 10,000 bonefish in 60 feet of water as they head offshore to spawn. So these spawning sites are protected embayments that is in close proximity to the flats, but also close proximity to the drop-offs. We found that bonefish go offshore, off the drop-offs to spawn, and we've tracked them down to 180 feet depth. And we've also seen them make significant vertical movements at night, which we think is when they're doing their broadcast spawning. So if you look closer, you can see at the top, there's fish porpoising at the surface, and we think that's them filling up their air bladders, preparing themselves to go in the deep water. And so when they drop down past 180 feet and they shoot up near the surface, the expansion of that air bladder helps them release the sperm and eggs. So best handling practices, we did some physiological studies down at the Cape Eleuthera Institute along with Fisheries Conservation Foundation. And we found that if you follow these best handling practices we've come up with, it significantly increases fish survival post-release. Because even though it's mostly a catch and release fishery, if you don't handle the fish properly, it's more likely that they're going to die after release. So we focus on fish handling, try to minimize handling as much as possible. Photography is a major issue. I say Facebook kills more fish than anything else because people want to get that nice grip and grin shot, and too much handling and too much air exposure. Hooks is a major thing, minimizing, trying to get a medium range of fight time, and then predator abundance. The higher the abundance of predators, the more likely the fish is going to be predated upon. I have one example from Mangrove Key. A guy just told me he was fishing a flat, didn't see a single shark, hooked a bonefish, six sharks showed up right away. And then outreach and education. This is something I've been really pushing since I came on board with Bonefish Tarpon Trust. We previously focused all our efforts on anglers and guides, which is great because they're right in the fishery. But also we need to expand our efforts to the primary and high school level. And so most Bahamian students actually learn little about the flats environment when they're in the schools. And so what we're trying to do now is combine classroom presentations with field trips as well. And what this allows is for us to expose Bahamian students to the flats environment when they otherwise wouldn't be able to. They're able to sometimes see the anthropogenic impacts that we talk about in the classroom. They're also able to participate in actual ongoing research, and they actually see what real research is like. And some might become marine scientists, some might want to become guides. I have one example where I was in Grand Key working with Friends in the Environment doing a kids camp up there. I gave them a presentation. We went out on the flats, and right in their backyard, there's dredging going on a nice bonefish flats for someone to have their own private beach and a channel for their boat to come in. And when they saw that, their whole perspective changed on what was actually occurring. So what does all this mean for conservation? So we know bonefish have really small home ranges, so they're susceptible to local anthropogenic activity. That could be boat traffic, someone putting in a marina, tourist developments and whatnot. But they're also capable of moving long distance to spawn. So if their migration pathways are cut off, that can inhibit a whole spawning population of bonefish. And then also the spawning sites themselves are very vulnerable because, as I said, there's these protected embayments that are near shallow water, but also have easy access to deep water, and these are preferred sites for marina development. So if someone was, for example, to go down the Cross Harbor, which has been suggested already, and put in marina development, that could totally displace probably the major spawning population of bonefish in the Bahamas. And it can also easily be exploited by the fishing industry because you could take one big net and just kill a whole spawning population. So, and then also outreach and education is a key component of conservation because we might do all this research and we might go to show it to the Bahamas National Trust and the Bahamian government, but if our students and the people who are in the industry aren't aware of what's going on, our conservation efforts aren't going to work. We have to have stakeholder buy-in. And so building awareness of young Bahamians is important because a lot of times they'll see things going on, and if they say to their parents or their uncle or whoever who's doing the wrong, more likely that those people are going to change their ways. And so moving forward, we want to expand our tagging program to the other islands. We want to incorporate acoustic telemetry with the tagging. And also, we really want to expand and build our outreach and education program. We plan on doing that by doing a lot more work with groups like Friends of the Environment. They're an amazing group grassroots group down in Abaco, and then with Bahamas National Trust as well. I'd like to acknowledge all of our collaborators, and with that, any questions?